Producing good corn silage for feed can make a world of difference when it comes to the digestive health of your dairy cows. Tonight, a closer look at SHREDLAGE technology, what makes it unique, and how it can improve your milk yields and beef production.
Good evening and welcome to Rural America Live. I'm Christina Loren. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to talk to the experts from a name that you know and trust, Claas of America. And joining us in studio is dairy nutritionist and co-inventor of SHREDLAGE brand silage, Roger Olson, and product manager for forage harvesters at Claas of America, Matt Jaynes, joins us tonight as well. And we're glad that you are with us at home. We have a lot to cover tonight. Let's introduce you to tonight's guest. Roger, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, Roger Olson. I have been a dairy nutritionist or product manager related to dairy nutrition for the last 18 to 19 years in the whole entire upper Midwest. And I'm blessed with a great family, a loving wife named Jody, older son Cody that passed away when he was younger, and a younger son Tyler that actually is a mechanical engineer. And previous to, and also along with it, I actually am a consultant to Claas of America, doing related to dairy nutrition consulting. And then previous to that, I've managed a dairy research farm. My wife Jody and I have owned a 1,200 cow dairy. And that's it. No,
I mean, hey, we're just breaking the ice right now. And I can't wait to tap into your expertise because you have done so much for the industry, an industry that is a long-standing industry. And so whenever you find out about something new and something like you discovered, sir, that happened as easily as it did, people are going to be excited about it. So let's talk about that tonight. Matt, first, though, tell us about yourself and your role with Claas.
So I'm Matt Jaynes. I'm the product manager for Claas for self-propelled forage harvesters. I grew up in Wisconsin on a small dairy farm. Been with Claas for over 17 years in the product management group, helping consult with our customers on the forage harvesters as well as sometimes on our baler hay tools. I live in Nebraska. My wife and I, we part-time farm a little bit on the weekends, and we have two little boys, Grant and Bo, that they're probably playing on the carpet right now with their forage harvesters as they watch this.
Some carpet farming, as it were. You know what? They're probably pretty proud to see Dad on this screen tonight. We've got two proud fathers with us, and we're happy you're with us. So we're talking tonight about how you can get a higher milk yield and improve livestock health. It's something that many of our producers are looking for, especially this day and age. For those who find the term unfamiliar, tell us about what SHREDLAGE is and the special SHREDLAGE forage harvester that Claas has to offer.
So SHREDLAGE is corn silage. So for the viewers that don't know what corn silage is, it's whole plant corn silage. So dairy or beef producer would harvest the corn when it's 68% moisture, the whole plant, and it runs through the chopper. The chopper chops it up into pieces, and then a corn cracker is what actually breaks up the cob and the kernel. And with what SHREDLAGE does is we double the length of cut, especially in the beef industry, from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, or we talk in metric with 26 millimeter, and it really highly processes that stalk so the steer or the dairy cow can really digest that stalk better, as well as break up the corn kernels.
Better nutrition means better performance, and that often translates to a higher profit for our farmers. And especially when you talk about the dairy industry, an industry that has been suffering so much. Roger, in order to really understand the true value of SHREDLAGE, higher milk yields in dairy cows, improved livestock health for beef cattle, talk about how it actually came into existence. I understand that you actually have an interesting story about how you invented it, and it was somewhat of a happy accident.
Yes, it was a little bit of a happy accident. And really what happened is a co-nutritionist that I worked with named Tim Thompson and I were having a discussion, phone conversation one evening, and we were talking about, we both did nutrition work for a lot of large dairies, and large dairies want to feed more and more corn silage because it's a low-cost ingredient that's very digestible. But with the current corn silages available at that time, we just didn't have the length, we didn't have the room and health that we wanted to be able to feed a lot higher percentage of corn silage. So while this conversation was occurring, Ross Dale, who has been my partner in SHREDLAGE LLC, was waiting to meet with me, and he heard this conversation. He asked me few questions about what we're talking about with the corn silage. And about 3 months later, Ross sent me a package in the mail, and it was this long, stringy-looking material, not real consistent. But when I saw that, instantly in my head, I thought, this material, if we could consistently make this, make it less sortable, make it a little bit more uniform in size, that we would have something that would actually fulfill the needs that Tim Thompson and I were talking about.
Okay, so usually it's chopped. This time it looked more like it was shredded. You had something. You knew you had something. It was unusual looking silage that you thought could work well, but you wanted to mass produce it. You had to first reproduce it, though. So what was the next step?
Right. The next step is I'm blessed with a father and a son that my dad's name is Lauren, that are very mechanical, and I literally took the sample that Ross mailed to me, chopped it up, made it kind of what I wanted it to look like, more uniform, in a salad bowl. And I showed my father and my son, this is what I want to do. And I had a couple ideas myself, mechanically, how to get it done. And my father and my son both told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. Anyways, over about 3 months, my father, you can see here, actually developed this wooden prototype. And really, it was just a proof of concept as to how to make shredlage. And it worked actually very well for shredding, and we went on from there.
So I love seeing the video, too, of how you're going through that developmental process. But I got to ask you, I know that just having a conversation with you before the show, you, sir, are a perfectionist. How long did it take you to develop the right rolls to produce the silage that met your criteria?
After my father's wooden prototype, my dad drew up a diagram of the Lauren cut roll, which you saw in the show here earlier. And we then went to a manufacturer on July 10th, I believe it was. And our intention is to get the manufacturer interested in manufacturing the processor, and to get a little bit of shredlage made that fall by around the 1st of September. And I wanted to go to 2 or 3 dairies that I knew well, so we could just get a proof of concept, make sure that the cows actually ate it. One of those herds actually was a Jersey herd that I know very well. And the reason I picked Jerseys is I knew that in order to feed a lot of silage or shredlage that was longer, we needed to make sure that it wasn't sortable, and Jerseys are famous for being sorting animals.
And just for our consumers who might be watching, we always get a lot of new viewers. You talk about sorting. It really adds into the equation of why this is such a valuable piece of technology. But just describe what sorting is and what happens with shredlage.
What sorting is with a lactating dairy cow and beef, we typically feed a total mixed ration. Everything that they consume is actually blended together in a mixer. And what sorting is think of it as you've got dessert, you've got your main course, and you've got your salad all mixed into one. And the forage is the salad, and the grain is the dessert. And cows, just like me, we want to eat the dessert first. So you need to do everything you possibly can with the ingredients that you choose and how you mix it, so you have the cows consuming, every time they have a bite, they take a bite of the salad, they take a bite of the dessert, and they take a bite of the main course.
They're getting all the nutrition they need in every single
Absolutely,
bite.
It has to happen every time.
I love that, and it's so fine that they can't sort it. It's all just mixed together so well. That's fascinating, and what I love is that you took a simple idea in one of the oldest industries in the world, and you have found a way to help our farmers in such a serious time when they need help right now. So what did the testing process look like, and what were some of the response that you were getting from the dairy farmers that you originally started working with?
What the testing procedure was, as I alluded to a little bit, is we actually did get the material made at 3 different farms, different lengths, because I didn't know exactly what the right length was. And we just fed it. And I sat and watched cows, did a lot of shaker boxes, determining the right size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. From there, Dr. Randy Schaefer from the University of Wisconsin called me because he had heard that we were doing this wild and crazy shredlage corn silage. He wanted to know what it was exactly. He actually come and took a look at it, and I decided that we should do a trial that we can do that would be peer-reviewed in American Dairy Science Association. And we drew up a protocol, and we wanted to address within that treatment, within that trial, will the animal sort it? What will be the production? What will the production be? What will be the physically effective NDF? And a few other things.
You know, you got something when someone's reaching out to you because they heard about something that you're doing and they want to take part in it. Okay, so you have this product, it's developed. How long, though, did it take before it took off? Because you have come such a long way since then.
So after the first year and making a little bit, we decided to make 30 shredders, if you will, for the following season. With the intention, we didn't want to make more than what we would kind of take care of. But physically, we knew that this material was going to be hard on the machine. It's going to, with the larger particles, it's going to rip the machine apart. So we wanted to make sure we could take care of what we put out there. And we decided on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, this is when we're actually going to sell them. We actually sold out in like an hour and a half. It was unbelievable. And those 30 farms, we had some issues, but we made a lot of pretty good shreddage at a lot of different locations, and it just went nuts after that.
Enter Claas, one of the most trusted names in agriculture. Matt, we got to switch this over to you now. How did Claas get involved with SHREDLAGE, and how did you meet this gentleman next to you?
Well, Roger was promoting SHREDLAGE so hard, and we were just hearing from our own producers, because, you know, at Claas, we pretty much own the silage quality part of the business in the forage harvester industry. And with the SHREDLAGE coming on board, we were really interested. The university studies proved it. Customers were proving it to us. So we were very, very interested in the technology.
Okay, well, we got to clarify here. Who approached who?
So the SHREDLAGE guys came to us, and they wanted to license the product to us. And we came to an agreement. We were really excited because, again, we own that forage quality business. We own the fuel efficiency, the reliability, the whole part when it comes to self-propelled forage harvesters. So we all came together with a licensing agreement. Then after a year, we had so much success that we actually bought them out.
Okay, we got to show people what we're talking about because this is an impressive piece of equipment. The JAGUAR forage harvester from Claas. I believe that we have some video just to show. Describe what we're looking at here.
So again, it's a self-propelled forage harvester. You got a corn head on the front, cutting off the corn towards the bottom of the ground. It goes through the feed rolls. They hold the crop. It chops it into pieces. So with SHREDLAGE, we're talking 21 to 30 millimeter. Then it goes through the SHREDLAGE cracker and through a blower and out the spout. And you can see here in the video, because with Claas, we're really an autonomous company. So the spout is actually automatically filling the trailer. The operator doesn't have to do it. So that's a great feature with our autofill. And you can see here with it's like Top Gun zooming in on it. You got the autopilot that steers the chopper, the ground contour sensors that raise and lower the head. So it's all a very autonomous type system.
All right, I could just watch that. I just love seeing that equipment roll across the field. How did the manufacturing transfer over to Claas, speaking of which?
So the SHREDLAGE people gave us their drawings, and you know, at Claas we make our own corn crackers in Germany. One of our factories, we have all the machining tool. And just a little bit of background, we were also in development of a new corn cracker that was much stronger because our producers, like in West Texas, Eastern Washington, California, they really are kind of hard on them because they grow really big corn with really big ears. And so we were doing a lot of testing to beef up the corn cracker in general, plus we were coming with a new cracker for the European market. So it worked out great to take the SHREDLAGE cracker and have it for North America. And so we really focus on each country and each type of silage that they want. And so with SHREDLAGE, it really helps for us on our beef and dairy cattle over here.
Yeah, you know, we've been talking a lot about dairy cattle, and I want to bring Roger back into the conversation because we've got to talk about some of the benefits for beef cattle producers as well.
Okay.
What do you think, Roger? When it comes to a beef cattle producer, what are some of the benefits from feeding SHREDLAGE?
The benefits to a beef cow are actually pretty similar, or beef feedlot finishing animals, pretty similar to a dairy cow. You need a certain amount of physically effective fiber, and with SHREDLAGE being longer, it actually can provide that physically effective fiber. And in general, the larger lots want to go to less and less silage so they can increase the grain and increase the efficiency, turn cattle faster, so they have a higher rate of gain. So you can keep an animal healthier by feeding less shredded corn silage, turn them through the lot faster. It's a big one.
Okay, yeah, that is a big one. And there's definitely research to support what you're saying right now. We're going to dive into that as we continue on. We got to pause for a quick break, but we want to open up our phone lines to you. You might have questions right now. We want you to participate in the show. Maybe you have questions about shredlage technology, if it would be a good fit for your operation. If so, give us a call, 877-731-6733. Maybe you just have a question about Claas in general. We're going to take those calls tonight. Plus, we'll talk more about how shredlage works, some of the data and the research that backs it up next on Rural America Live with Claas. Welcome back to Rural America Live with Claas. I'm Christina Loren. Tonight we're talking about their patented process for making silage that is focused squarely on animal performance. It's called shredlage. Now remember, you're a big part of this show. We want you to join the conversation tonight, 877-731-6733. Our phone lines are open. The experts with Claas of America, they're here to answer your questions directly, 877-731-6733. And joining us once again tonight, dairy nutritionist and co-inventor of shredlage, we have Roger Olson, and product manager for foragers at Claas of America, Matt Jaynes. Matt, we got to talk about shredlage again. The biggest difference between shredlage and traditional silage.
Yeah, so shredlage, as we talked about before, is a 21 millimeter to 30 millimeter length of cut. So a pretty long cut, because when it comes to the beef side, a lot of them are chopping at that 1/2 inch, and we're wanting to be up at that 1 inch range. Same thing with dairy. Traditionally, dairy was at 3/4 of an inch, and we want to be up into that 26 millimeter length or 1 inch. So with that shredlage, what we're taking is 2 corn cracker rolls. So the front roller, the teeth are grooved upward, and they pull the crop through. And then the back roller spins at 50% less speed, and that's what's creating that tearing effect. And you can see here how the teeth are grooved in that spiral effect, and it's going crosswise, and that's what really tears off that stalk. And that's where we get that good bacteria to stick to the stalk to have that cow break down that stalk really good and absorb those nutrients.
You know, generally speaking, what kind of feedback are you hearing from the producers who are using shredlage in their operations?
So, I mean, from our side, it's a cost savings on feed. So you might reduce the amount of straw you put in your ration. We have some people that have reduced how much alfalfa they put in their ration. So there's a knowing your numbers effect there of knowing what your costs are and going with that. Then there's the big thing with milk production. You know, we're seeing over 2.2 pounds more milk production per cow per day. So that's a big advantage on the beef side. Carlo will get into that with the huge advantages we saw in our feedlot study.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about that study. Wait till you hear these figures coming out of this study. But first, let's hear from one of your customers. We have Kurt Weirda joining us on the phone, a dairy farmer from Western Iowa. Now, you use shredlage. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so we were one of those first farms that Roger took the role to, and we demoed it for a couple of days, kind of before we got into the thick of harvest. And then that next year, we installed it in the cutter that came to us. And so, yeah, we've been using it probably for about 10 years now.
10 years now. How do your animals take to it?
Well, the advantage is that we're in an area where we grow an abundance of corn, so that is a good source of feed for our dairies. And by doing this, we can feed a lot more of it. On an as-fed basis, we're pushing the limits of 90, 95 pounds as-fed per cow per day of corn silage. And by doing that, we can kind of reduce the amount of hay, which kind of helps us to get more of a uniform dry hay in our ration and feed a little bit less of it. So it's a little bit easier to do that and cost effective. And the other advantage that we've seen is just the rumen health of the animal, which just is a plus all the way around, from milk production to health to repro, etc.
You know, one thing about farmers is they are transparent. I've only met honest farmers, and that is a God-honest truth. Would you recommend this product to your neighbors?
Yep, and I've done that a few times.
All right. Well, that says enough right there. Thank you so much for joining us, Kurt Weirdo. We really appreciate you taking some time. We know you're busy. It's the growing season, so thank you for joining us. Matt, I understand that you've recently worked alongside the University of Nebraska on a different kind of study. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we worked with the University of Nebraska out in the Panhandle, and Carla Jenkins helped us put a study together on a finishing ration to finish out beef cattle to see what their rate of gains and their feed efficiency would be with shredlage versus doing conventional corn silage.
All right. You impressed with the results? Were you surprised by the results?
We were actually pretty surprised. They were better than we thought they would be. It was a really good study. It was a good time of the year to do it. The silage was good, and it turned out really well.
All right, well, let's find out more about that study. I believe we have Carla Wilk on the line now. She's a cow-calf management specialist with the Panhandle Research and Extension Center at the University of Nebraska. Carla, welcome. Tell us more about your role at the university's Research and Extension Center.
So I am the cow-calf and stocker management specialist out there. And so we did do a study where we evaluated the shredlage compared to conventional silage for finishing cattle.
What were your first reactions when you saw the results?
I was impressed that we had that much statistical difference, but we had 288 head on the study. We had 8 replications per treatment, and that gives us very good statistical power. So if there are real differences, we've got enough power to pick that up, and we did.
You know, you work with a lot of different research. When you took a look at how animals were responding to the shredlage, what was your initial reaction? Did you think, hey, this is something that we need to delve a little bit more deeper into and find out a little bit more about how we can help other animals with this?
It would be very useful to do other studies, and in my opinion, of course, I'm always willing to do another study on something, but this was with finishing cattle, but silage can be a very important aspect of growing diets or backgrounding diets, and it can be a very big component of just maintaining a beef cow, especially in situations where we're running out of forage. And I do a lot of research with limit feeding beef cattle in confinement mama cows, not finishing cattle. And we want to limit the amount of intake of feed that they take in, but we want them to have their nutrient needs met, and we want them to feel full. And so the shredlage would possibly be something to evaluate in that situation as well, because that bulkier, more time in the rumen for them to ruminate on it might help them.
Absolutely. You know, you're in Nebraska. You know that it's sometimes feast or famine when it comes to weather conditions. Drought conditions can easily take over in the plains states. Talk about why shredlage would be a good option for producers who do live in some of these states where we see the drought become more of a big story each and every spring and summer.
Well, if you do have some irrigation or limited irrigation, then we can probably get a forage crop out of the corn. Our preference would be to plant a silage variety of corn to then make shredlage out of. But sometimes we get hit by drought or hailstorms, and we might have to use corn that we intended to harvest for grain corn as silage. And so, you know, this is another place that that would fit in for a good silage product, is trying to help us when we have to bring cattle in out of the pasture sooner than we intended, or if we've in general lost grass due to urbanization, urban sprawl, that kind of thing, then having a good, reliable silage source is going to be more and more critical to both the feedlot sector and the cow-calf side in the beef industry.
Okay. Based on your research, what would you say to the producer, cattle or dairy producer out there who might be considering implementing shredlage technology on their operation?
Well, we did see increased gain, increased final live body weight, increased hot carcass weight from the shredlage. And we actually saw decreased dry matter intake on the shredlage. And so what that actually translates to be is that the cattle were also more efficient on the shredlage than the conventional silage. So it turned out to be a very interesting study.
Absolutely. I mean, 5.4% greater. Just talk about the significance of that number alone.
You know, from a financial standpoint, those numbers can add up.
They certainly can. And when you talk about a producer's bottom line, especially this day and age when we are all trying to operate leaner, especially when you look at the economy, the trade situation, this is something that could be considered and could be very helpful in some operations. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Really appreciate you joining us on the show tonight. Matt, let's go back to you. Besides the processor and your Jaguar forage harvester, is there anything else that dairymen need to produce shredlage?
So that's the main thing, but when we have a lot of electronic technology at Claas. So with shredlage, we talked about how you can chop it at 26 millimeter when it's at 68% moisture. But now if we've got technology that when you go to the top of the hills and there's a sandy knoll hill and the silage turns drier, we've got technology where you just type into our new CBIS Touch monitor the length of cut for the moisture. So if you're at 60% moisture, I'll chop it at 21 millimeter. If you're at 68, it can chop it at 26, and somewhere in between, you can set it for chopping for 23. So that's one part, and that is all based off of our NIR moisture meter. It's a really high-tech lab, just like what the labs use to analyze forage, and it's mounted right there on the spout. And that sends the data, and it will speed up or slow down the feed rolls. The next part is we've got our silage, our ActiSiler system, where that takes inoculant, and that tank there on the fender is a really highly insulated tank. And we've seen out in California and Arizona, that water doesn't even drop in 100-degree days raise more than 4 degrees. So it keeps those bacteria bugs really good to keep that, put that onto your silage, and it really does a good job from a silage quality standpoint. Then the last thing is with the Silage Tech package, is it's all about with the GPS. At Claas, we're a really open architecture, so we match up with all the major yield mapping and GPS system manufacturers, so you can have your yield maps along with your field as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love how far technology has come. It's just amazing what you can do in the ag industry this day and age. Roger, we got to go back to the nutrition side, and we will in just a moment, but I'm just being told we've got a caller from Wisconsin. Dennis joins us. Dennis, thanks for joining the conversation. I hear you have a question. Go right ahead.
Well, I don't have a question. I have a comment to make. We've been feeding shredlage now for about 5 years. We have 2 of the closed choppers with the shredlage processor in it. And back in early May, we decided we weren't going to have enough corn silage to make it to the 2020 crop. So there was another farmer down the road that got rid of his cows, so we bought some of his corn silage. It was cut short, and it was not shredlage. It was run through a regular processor. And since starting feeding that, we have seen our herd health decline. We have problems getting the cows to eat it. So we've had all kinds of issues. I just wanted to make the comment that I think the shredlage is a great product, and I think people should use it.
Well, we appreciate hearing that. Does that surprise you? Roger, does it surprise you about the nutrition aspect?
That's what I was shooting for,
Yeah.
way back. So.
Bullseye, you got it. And
That was a great comment.
You know what's interesting to me about that comment is that it seems to me like his cows liked the shredlage so much that you can't go back. It's hard to go back when you find something that you like so much. But we do have to talk about the nutritional value a little bit deeper as well, because the cows are getting something that they normally wouldn't. Talk a little bit more about that, unpack that for us, because I think that's something we really want to hit home for the producers. Roger, you're the guy to do it.
Okay, so the whole concept of shredlage in terms of the forage is that by chopping it longer, we increase the amount of physically effective fiber that goes into that diet. And why that's important for a cow is the cow has 4 stomachs, and one of those, very large, it's about a 55-gallon drum size, that actually contains a whole bunch of bacteria that actually give that cow the ability to digest fiber. And what happens is that the cow consumes the feed, the bacteria attach to the forage and the rest of the diet, and slowly degrade the forage particles into small fractions and turn them into acids, etc. And that's all fine and dandy, but it's a very complex system. These bacteria need to have a certain amount of warmth, and they need to maintain a pH of well into the 6s, maybe not quite up to a 7. And we had talked earlier about if a cow has the ability to sort, she will eat the dessert first. And all grains produce a lot of acids, and if that animal will eat a lot of eat a lot of grain first, she will produce a lot of acids. Those acids will lower the pH of the rumen, and the bacteria that are in the rumen will be severely hampered. And when that happens, cows get sick. They get loose. They go off feed. Bad things happen. So the trick is, I don't know if it's a trick, but what you need to do is you need to maintain a certain amount of physically effective fiber, better than 3/4 of an inch. This physically effective fiber is like an on-off switch for this rumen. This rumen has a whole bunch of muscles that constantly contract, and they mix the forage and the grain together, and they blend out all the acids that are being produced. And if you don't have enough physically effective fiber, the switch for the washing machine is turned off, and the acids you'll have hot spots of acids causing damage. The flip side of that is you can actually have material that's maybe too long, or it's not very palatable, if you will. Like if you have a corn stalk that looks like a cigarette butt, they will sort it out, and that will give the cow the ability to sort it. She's going to want to eat the grains first, leave the long particles for last, and she'll degrade all the large short stuff first, causing acidosis.
So as I understand it, it's less about the actual kernel processing and more about what's happening to the stalk that's really making a difference?
For the physically effective fiber portion of the diet, absolutely positively. We absolutely want good processing of the corn, but we need a good, real healthy rumen. The only way you can do it is you got to go longer, and it's got to be very palatable and not sortable.
What would you tell the critics? There's always some critics out there who claim there isn't a big difference between your SHREDLAGE and silage.
Well, I can give you my opinion, but a better way to maybe look at that is there's been a number of peer-reviewed trials and some unpublished trials that were done very well. One of them I had alluded to earlier was done at the University of Wisconsin by Dr. Randy Shaver and Dr. Luis Ferretto, and where we compared conventionally chopped silage to SHREDLAGE, and we looked at sorting, and we documented that the animals did not sort the SHREDLAGE anymore, the conventional. And we also noted that there was between a 2 to 2.2 pounds more milk produced, and there was no real rumen health issues. A second trial was done by that same group due to the interest from the first trial, and that trial actually had a few more details added to it. We actually looked at total tract fiber digestibility, or excuse me, total tract nutrient digestibility. There was about an 11% increase. So in other words, at the end of the day, there was 11% less stuff that came out the back end of the cow, and it went into the milk. And then there's also been another really well-done trial that wasn't published in New York that showed very similar results of around the 2.2 pounds of milk.
2.2 pounds of milk per day, right?
Yes.
Per day. I'm going to get the units in there. That's very important, especially when producers are trying to figure out their bottom line. I got to ask about the benefits for a custom harvester. A custom harvester and the ability to produce SHREDLAGE. Tell us a little bit more about why that would be a big benefit.
So for the custom harvester side, it's just offering another tool to his customer that can put him above the competition that he has out there. Because in the custom harvesters, we know it's really competitive. There's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of guys that will lower their prices, but they do a really bad job. And you pay for what you get. So with SHREDLAGE, the custom guy can charge a little bit more because he's going to put up a really good quality feed, and And at the end of the day, you know, the operators I work with and customers across the country, they're really passionate, especially our Claas guys are really passionate about making good quality feed. And by giving them that quality feed to their producers, they'll keep retaining that account year in, year out.
You know, it feels good when you know that you're giving your clients good quality anything. And so that's great that you're actually giving them that opportunity as well. For the custom harvesters out there, maybe ready to make another capital investment, they're on the fringe, they don't know what they're going to put that money into, what would you say to push them over the line and to get this particular forage harvester?
You know, for them, it's all about profitability, and it's actually pretty easy. If they've got a pretty newer model of Claas forage harvesters and are running the Claas MCC cracker, it's simply changing out the rolls to the new lower end cut rollers, as well as changing out the front pulley and a belt. So it's not like it's a huge investment to switch over to SHREDLAGE outside of the capital cost of the parts, but it makes it really easy, and they can really help their producer increase, whether it's rates of gain on beef side or on the dairy side for milk production.
All right. Well, it's all about the bottom line, and we want to talk a little bit more about how we can help yours. We're going to pause for a quick break. Stay with us, though, because immediately following this break, we're going to take calls from our listeners. I'm sure we'll have some who want to talk to you. The number 877-731-6733. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Rural America Live. Tonight we are talking with Claas about SHREDLAGE technology and how it can benefit dairy and beef producers across the country. Remember, you're an important part of the show. We want to hear from you tonight. The experts with Claas are here. They're ready to take your calls, and our lines are open. 877-731-6733. Roger, so you work as a nutritionist after developing SHREDLAGE, or have you changed the way that you operate? What are you doing these days?
I actually work with nutritionists. I do some tech service, and I actually am a dairy account manager for an organic trace mineral company. So I'm still heavily involved in the industry, and a lot of the original SHREDLAGE customers are still customers of mine, still using SHREDLAGE.
All of your customers still using SHREDLAGE?
Pretty much everybody that started still is, and a whole lot more.
I'm happy to hear that. That's fantastic. That was almost an unfair question, so I'm happy that the answer was the one that I was looking for. Carla, I want to bring you back in because we often talk about dairy producers. That's where the focus of this conversation has been tonight, but you really did these studies. You work with cow-calf producers. Talk about why beef producers as well should at least consider incorporating SHREDLAGE on their operations.
Well, our study was done, on the finishing side, and part of the issue that feedlots wrestle with is that, as Roger indicated, that roughage is important for rumen health, and it's the same in the finishing steer as it is in the dairy cow. But those are bulky, they're expensive, and they take up a lot of space in the feed truck. And so when we have to put more of them in the diet, then that's more cost because we have to run the feed truck more. If we can reduce the amount of roughage that's in the diet, then we can have a denser load and make more pens, feed more pens. On the same load. So it was an interesting study because what we wanted to know is if we could reduce the amount of silage that was included in the diet if the particle size was longer, and if the particle size would make up part of that difference in what we normally include in the diet. And so interestingly, it did.
Wowee. And to a magnitude that I think surprised some of us. I want to talk a little bit about how this works because we really want to dive into the technology a little bit more. And so I've got to ask you, Matt, you talk about a corn stalk, and sometimes corn stalks are thick. How fine do we see the cut when it comes to the SHREDLAGE technology?
So I actually got an example here. So I've got our SHREDLAGE card, and because our biggest thing is you can make good SHREDLAGE or terrible SHREDLAGE, and if you make terrible SHREDLAGE, you will not get to experience the benefits of it. So with the stalk part of it, we say take the silage cup, fill it up, and weigh it. So let's say if it weighs 300 grams, we want that We dump it out, and then we try to find all the pieces. And then we want all the pieces, 95% of them, to go through here. So the bottom hole is for the stalk pieces that are below the ear, and then the top hole is for the round stalks that are from the tassel to the ear. And so 95% of all stalks need to go through there. If you're not achieving that, you're making bad long cut corn silage. And that's where the people that are naysaying, and that's where they've come with that experience, is bad shredlage. So these planks here that we have, you can see how narrow they are. We want all these planks, because the other big thing is a naysayer will say, well, it's harder to pack. Well, when you have these nice thin planks, they pack really good. And especially if you have a Claas with the crab steering mode, you can really pack that silage good, because part of silage quality is also getting as high a bunk density as possible. So with these planks, long, flat, you can get that good bunk density.
Measuring in the millimeters as well. We're taking the units way down. Okay, we're going to go to Kentucky for our next call. Rusty joins the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Rusty. Go right ahead.
Hello there. Thanks for taking my call. I've just got a question, and I guess I'm looking at bunk density. How does shredlage affect the bunk density? Because I know you're kind of exposing more of the shredded particles, of course, so I just wanted to see what your take was on it.
So Roger actually has a pretty good graph that if you go out to our website and things, we've seen what bunk densities are. Roger probably can allude to some of what those numbers were, but with these, that's what I was just getting into, is talking about these flat planks, because they can pack. Because if it's a big, thickness of my finger, around, it's harder for that to pack. But with these, by setting the shredlage processor properly, you can really pack this crop very, very well.
And people might have questions out there right now. I want to send you to the website, shredlage.com, SHREDLAGE, shredded silage, shredlage.com. And that's where you're going to find a wealth of information, because we know when it comes to making a purchase like this, a capital investment, you want to get all the research. And boy, you're going to find studies there. They have everything you need to know right on that website, shredlage.com. Now, Roger, I do have a question though. Why did you decide to use a 9% and 14% silage and not some other percentages? Why did you choose those?
The reason we chose those is a little bit what Carla talked about. Is we didn't want to take up space in a rumen. We wanted to be able to document that we could increase the rumen health by increasing this physically effective NDF. And a second but minor thing to that, the real large feedlots actually want to feed less silage because the physical size of their lots are so big that they don't want to have to feed any more than they have to, space-wise.
Now, if you have an existing Jaguar forage harvester, you want to convert it to one that produces shredlage, do you have to purchase the whole shebang, or can you just purchase a processor?
Yeah, if you want a new processor, we sell those through our parts department, or you can retrofit with the lower end cut rollers and the front pulley, which is our 50% pulley, and a belt. And you can do that on our newer choppers if you have an MCC corn cracker in already. Now, if you've got an older chopper, there's a little bit more work, but you can purchase an MCC-M shredlage cracker with a little bit of modifications. We can go back to the choppers in the early 2000s as well, because at the end of the day, we want this technology to go out to all of our producers, whether big or small, and it's also great for the resale value of our forage harvesters to let everybody be able to do it.
Absolutely. And Carl, I wanted to go back to you as well. Are you seeing this adopted more and more in the state of Nebraska?
I'm sure it is. I guess in my line of work, I don't necessarily interact, with asking people that, but we are certainly putting up more and more silage. We've had some unfortunate weather conditions that have forced more silage to be put up. And so I think that as the information about this technology gets out, it's going to be more adopted as they understand it better.
Bingo, you said it right there. And especially when it comes to beef cattle producers, I think that this is something that they could really take advantage of. And you're the one who can tell us more about that, Carla, how this can benefit the cattle producer. Every day, these guys, they're watching the markets, they're watching commodity prices, they're seeing what's happening in the international headlines. They're always looking for ways to be able to put more money back in their pocket. Why do you think this will be adopted more when it comes to beef cattle producers using shredlage?
Well, I think that, as we alluded earlier, that ability to feed less in the diet and being able to store the amount you need without having to find more space to store more silage is going to be part of it. And I think the results that we had showing that efficiency and that increased gain will certainly be of interest to our producers as well. You sell weight, when you finish beef cattle, and so the more you can put on for the same resources is always a good deal.
Absolutely, you're so right about that. Now, this is new technology, and we are helping you get the word out about it right now. But I got to ask you, Matt, how many years has Claas been making the shredlage processor?
So when we did the licensing agreement, it was about 5 years ago. So we're really seeing a big uptake. Right now, when I look at the numbers, we're between 50 and 60% take rate on shredlage processors over our conventional processor. And it just is taken off all across the world. It's interesting, the calls I get, from all different continents asking about shredlage, as being the American person being around it a lot. So it's really taken off. I know down in South America, they're doing shredlage even with sorghum and milo. So they're taking even those crops that, for the really dry regions. So shredlage is, it's great for corn silage. There's some South American studies done as well for sorghum that have seen really good results as well.
Sorghum, huh? That's interesting because we've got a lot of sorghum growers here in the States as well. We were talking a little bit about custom harvesters. Do you get a lot at this point who actually produce shredlage for their customers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of custom harvesters, that's all they do is shredlage. They, even like California, they've got their machines all geared up to do shredlage as well. So, and they see the benefit. I mean, at the end of the day, as a custom harvesters, they're passionate about helping their client be as profitable as possible, and they take really deep pride in doing a good job.
Absolutely. I think most people in the ag industry do that, just like the three of you joining me tonight. I can tell you all care very much so about the work that you do, about the people that you serve. I want to show that video, though, of the JAGUAR forage harvester one more time, because this is a very impressive piece of equipment. And I noticed that some of the JAGUAR forage harvesters in the video had tracks. Is that a new feature?
Yep, so in 2020, we have really a new model out there. So tracks is one of them. It goes on our big chopper, the 990, which is 925 horse, or on our 960 at 626. And what tracks do, people would traditionally think that they're just for the muddy conditions, but we've got clients that I'll be visiting on Saturday on the 4th of July in Arizona. They're going to be running the track chopper because of the ridges. It really takes the rough ride when you're opening headlands up, so it's about efficiency. We've also got growers like in Wisconsin and Minnesota that are buying their corn from a grower, and the last few years, has been really muddy, and with the track chopper, it really floats the top of the ground, doesn't leave a rut. And so for that soil compaction and that for the agronomy side of corn, the track chopper is a really good option. It's amazing how much it floats and the ride. This last year when we were doing our launch, we made a bump track, and you could take that track chopper 6 miles an hour across to where we ridged it out in 38 inches to mimic a lot of out west corn versus a wheel machine. And we had one of the news editors actually hit his head on the ceiling taking a wheel machine across that, thinking he could go the same speed. So really impressive.
Good shocks. Happy to hear about that. What is new on the choppers in 2020? Anything else you didn't mention there?
Well, there's a lot of new things. We really improved our feed roll cabinet. As you guys had on here a few weeks ago with Precision, we've now got hydraulic cylinders that pull down on our feed rolls on both sides. And what that does is takes the vibration out of the cab. as well as keeps a very consistent cut, because we're really keen on that silage quality to our producers, whether it's really dry, really wet, whatever. Also, we've beefed up a lot of things in the feed roll cabinet, made the bearings bigger, because we went from 884 horse on the prior model to 925, and we just didn't simply want to throw more horsepower at it, so we had to beef up the whole crop flow to handle that horsepower. The other great thing is we've got our new CBIS Touch. It's a wonderful big touchscreen monitor, something our producers were really asking for, as well as with our comfort cab. It's the quietest cab in the industry, so you can actually think and talk on a phone and communicate with everybody else, because with a forage harvester, there's so much vibration under the cab from the feed rolls, the corn cracker, the knife drum, and we did a really good job of making sure we were the quietest cab in the industry. And then lastly, I know a lot of the dealers, I talk a lot about is CMOS Auto Performance. It's something that we have an exclusive of, where it takes our cruise pilot and our dynamic power and combines it into one feature. So you can set your maximum ground speed. So if, let's say you say that field, you can only go up to 8 miles an hour, you set that, and then you set what you want the chopper to lug down to. And with these new engines, we like to lug them down to about 1,600 RPM. We really want to pull a forage harvester down. As you know, combines are a finesse thing. Forage harvesters, we want to use every ounce of power and push them down. And combining that, so if you get into light corn and you get up to that 8 miles an hour, it backs off the horsepower, and we're seeing a 15% fuel efficiency by doing that using the dynamic power. But now if you're in good heavy 30-ton corn and you're pushed down, it's going to maximize it and keep controlling that ground speed. So that chopper all day long is putting out the maximum amount of tons. And we haven't seen with our new CMOS anyone that can really outperform it. So with our custom guys or up in the Midwest, we've got a lot of clients that are 12, 18 hours in the chopper, and this is really makes it autonomous, because it makes that GPS steering, so the ground speed, your steering, the autofill. We even included a new rear portion on the autofill, so if you're in West Texas and the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour, you can actually put in a windage so it'll hook the crop back into the truck, and it was really impressive last year on the demos.
Well, hey, that's a standard summer afternoon in Texas. You get those 40-mile-per-hour winds. I just wanted to show the Jaguar one more time, if we can get that up on the screen. And Roger, I got to come to you, because I want to know what it feels like to know that your invention is featured on such a world-class piece of equipment, knowing something that you worked on with your father. How does that feel?
Well, for me, it's really rewarding personally. It's great to have my whole family heavily involved in the process, and I had a great partner, Ross Dale. All of us are very proud to say that we actually probably changed the industry. My partner, Ross, said that's one of the things that we wanted to accomplish when we started, and I think we did. So it's just a really excellent feeling.
You're a humble
Glad to know
man.
that we could help a lot of great dairymen.
Yeah, you revolutionized the industry. You have changed the industry to the magnitude that a lot more people are going to be helped, and that's a wonderful thing. So, shredlage.com, I want to make sure that you go to this website, SHREDLAGE.com. That's where you're going to find out all the information that you need to know. You can find out more about that study that we were telling you about for cow-calf operations, finishing operations that Carla brought to the table. Great work on that. And you're going to find out more about the other Claas products. You want to check out a combine? Go to Claas.com. They've got some great equipment there for you. I want to thank you all for joining us here on Rural America Live. Wishing you and your family members a beautifully blessed evening from Rural America's most important network. We're going to send you out with the Jaguar. Take a look.